The governor and attorney general have introduced emergency legislation to grant subpoena power to the independent commission investigating the Lewiston mass shooting. The bill would allow the commission to issue subpoenas for documents and testimony of witnesses. The commission formally requested legislative help last November to obtain that power. The bill is co-sponsored by the leaders of both parties in the House and Senate. As emergency legislation, it would go into effect immediately if passed with a 2/3 majority in both the House and Senate.